After a bit of shitposting through the GX era, here's something actually decent. Here we have the Dark World archetype, which is an archetype mentioned quite a few times on my review series, and is another archetype used by themselves since they were monster spirits who were roaming through the horrendous GX Season 3. But yeah, this is an archetype that's focused on discarding themselves by card effects, so yeah. Similar to Infernities, in a way. I believe they could have actually been considered precursors to Infinities in some Infernities in some way. But yeah, let's actually get started with their monster lineup. First up, we have Zur, the Knight of Dark World, and Renge, Gatekeeper of Dark World. These are two vanilla monsters, and they are usually ran if you prefer running Rescue Rabbit. Zur for being an average beater, and Renge for being a very beefy 2100 defense wall. I haven't seen Rescue Rabbit ran that often in Dark World, so I wouldn't even bother with these two. After that, we have their final true first monster, that being Ceruli, Guru of Dark World. If this card is discarded to the graveyard by a card effect, special summon this card from the graveyard to your opponent's side of the field in face-up defense position. When this card is special summoned by the effect of a Dark World card, your opponent must discard one card. And again, this is a Dark World card, so this effect will trigger. I mean, it's not good. You're just giving them a free monster unless you destroy it by other means. So yeah, I wouldn't advise running this at all. Although if you actually crave a level 1 for some purposes where level 1 monsters are relevant, run 1 if you feel like it. Their next monster is their first level 2 Scar, Scout of Dark World. When this card is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, add one level 4 or lower Dark World monster from your deck to your hand. I mean, it's a bit of an outdated search. I would have actually preferred if this thing special summoned instead of performing a search. Although it would kind of go against the nature of the deck, so what am I saying? So yeah, a bit of an outdated search, but it still get the job done, and you can't go wrong with 2 of these in your deck. Next up, we have Cocky, Gorelia of Dark World. If this card is discarded to the graveyard by a card effect, target one monster on the field, destroy that target. Grand Tactician of the Dark World has also the same effect, but only for back row. And yeah, these two are usually ran at 2 max in each Dark World build because they are very simple removal. And yeah, they usually get the job done at what they specialize in. And they also, because they're level 2, they're prime staple targets for Ojama Dark World builds, which we'll get into later. I have no idea how Ojamas got splashed into Dark Worlds. I mean, Dark World spell and trap lineup can trigger the effect of Oja magic and everything, but yeah, I'll get more into that when I get to the grading scale. Now their only level 3 is Brow, however, Huntsman of Dark World. If this card is discarded to the graveyard by a card effect, draw 1 card, plus another card if this card was discarded from your hand to your graveyard by an opponent's card effect. There are a few cards in the archetype that can trigger the opponent to discard your cards from your hand, and so yeah, this is actually a pretty niche little card to have. So an easy +1 or even +2 if the opponent's card effect is discards this card to the graveyard. So making this card a 2 or 3 of staple in any Dark World build. Also, it has very nice attack values for level 3, so what's not to love? Their first level 4 is Beige, Vanguard of Dark World. If this card is discarded to the graveyard by a card effect, special summon it from the graveyard. Do I need to explain why you need to run 3 at all times? It's a free monster and a very good level 4 beater and link material. Simple and easy. Always run 3 of these. And their next level 4 is Brawn, Mad King of Dark World. When this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent, you can discard 1 card. Here we, ladies and gentlemen, have a case of wasting a badass artwork and card name on a garbage effect. So I mean, this thing can trigger the discard effects of some other monsters, summon base, pop things with good tactician and cocky, but this monster is so underwhelmingly easy to run over. So yeah, you're mostly gonna suffer a board wipe. I mean, if this was present on a boss monster or something, I wouldn't even complain in the slightest, but the fact that it's placed on a level 4 generic monster, it makes it not worth running in the long run. Next up we have Snow, Unlight of Dark World, and if this card is discarded to the graveyard by a card effect, if it was discarded from your hand to your graveyard by an opponent's card effect, you can either target one monster in your opponent's graveyard, add one Dark World card from your deck to your hand, then special summon that monster, if any, in face-up defense position. You may remember this guy because this thing actually has a pretty obnoxious wording to its text, and believe me, it is. So let me actually explain how this works. Basically, if you decide not to target a monster in the opponent's graveyard, you still get a surge, but this effect is not treated as a targeting effect. If you do target a monster in the opponent's graveyard, it is treated as a targeting effect and can be negated with a card effect that specifies that something along the lines, this thing cannot be targeted or something like that. And then you get a search. So yeah, basically you first target a monster if you want to summon it, then you add a Dark World card from your deck to your hand, and then you resummon the card. Yeah, a bit of a confusing mess here, and still, even with this confusing mess, I still believe this thing is a tree-off staple because this guy searches out your entire archetype, no questions asked. So yeah, you should always run 3 of these at all times. Their first tribute monster is Gold, Woolord of Dark World, a level 5 with 2300 attack, and if this card is discarded to the graveyard by a card effect, if it was discarded from your hand to your graveyard by an opponent's card effect, you can target up to 2 cards your opponent controls, special summon this card from the graveyard, then destroys those targets. Okay, so this is actually another very fantastic card to have, since popping 2 cards on the field along with getting a free monster from the graveyard is absolutely ingenious card design. It all opens up some rank 5 potential in the deck, since you know this thing is a level 5 itself, and yeah, really nice popping effect, and again, not many cards in the archetype can trigger the effect discarding of the opponent. So yeah, those are actually usually ran at 3. So yeah, when a Gold Woolord of Dark World is usually ran at 2 max. Next one we have Silva, Warlord of Dark World, another level 5. And if this card is discarded to the graveyard by a card effect, special summon it from the graveyard. Then if it was discarded from your hand to your graveyard by an opponent's card effect, your opponent returns exactly 2 cards from their hand to the bottom of the deck in any order. Now we actually have an upgrade of Woolord. Again, this the special summon is applied even if you yourself discard this card via card effect, and if the opponent discards it, you basically spin the top 2 cards from the field to the bottom of the deck, which is actually a even better form of removal than Gold's. So yeah, this is a very nice card. Even though I actually prefer running this thing over Gold in better ratio. So usually it's 2 of these and 1 Gold. If you run this, then their next monster is Latinum, Exarch of the Dark World. Their first level 6. So your stats are a bit too pathetic for a level 6, but yeah, we'll get to that. If this card is discarded to the graveyard by a card effect, if this card was discarded from your hand to your graveyard by an opponent's card effect, target 1 Fiend type monster on the field, special summon this card from the graveyard, then that target, if any, gains 500 attack. Again, this is only used for being a free monster and nothing else. The attack boost is very irrelevant, and this thing only relies on the opponent in order to be resummoned from the graveyard, and your stats are also very low for being a level 6. However, this one also has a, so to call it, upgrade, that being Lucent Netherlord of the Dark World, another level 6, 2400 attack and 0 defense, and if this card is discarded to the graveyard by a card effect, special summon it from the graveyard. Then if it was discarded by an opponent's card effect, you can special summon one fiend monster from your deck to either side of the field. Yeah, this is a very obvious straight upgrade over the original. You trigger this effect yourself to get a free monster, and if the opponent happened to discard it, you get a free monster from the deck of any level. Wow! And the part where you summon it to either player's field is immensely confusing to me, because why the hell would you want to do that? We don't need another Cerule, so yeah, this thing is a definite 3-off staple in all Dark World builds. Their first level 2 tribute monster, their level 7, is Rainbow, Overlord of Dark World. If this card is discarded from your hand to the graveyard by an opponent's card effect, special summon this card from the graveyard. When this card is special summoned this way, destroy all monsters your opponent controls or all spell and trap cards your opponent controls. Pretty decent for their first boss monster. Really, I have no complaints about this. I would have actually liked if this thing actually had the effect of shuffling your entire graveyard into the deck upon being summoned. To have it a Trishula-ish revival ability as well. So yeah, this is actually a really cool boss monster, boss monster in general. So yeah. However, they do have the ultimate boss monster, that being Gruffa, Dragon Lord of the Dark World. And you can special summon this card from your hand by returning one Dark World monster you control to the hand, except Gruffa, Dragon of the Lord of the Dark World. If this card is discarded to the graveyard by a card effect, target one card your opponent controls, destroy that target. Then if this card was discarded from your hand to your graveyard by an opponent's card effect, look at one random card in your opponent's hand. Then if it was a monster, you can special summon it to your side of the field. Okay, so quite a bit to take in here. This thing has a very great summoning condition for a boss monster. It's very congruent with the archetype. What's not to like? Also, if it was discarded, you can also target a card your opponent controls to destroy it. Also, you have a chance to snatch a monster from the hand onto your field. So yeah, it's a very nice card to have. Trade-in bait. So yeah, it's a overall very cool monster to have. Now it's time for their spell and trap support. First up being their field spell, the Gates of Dark World. All fiend type monsters you control gain 300 attack and defense. Once per turn, you can banish one fiend type monster from your graveyard, discard one fiend type monster, then draw one card. Obviously, you're not going to be using the first effect at all, although it is a permanent battle boost, which is mostly irrelevant. However, their other effect is actually very decent. For the price of banishing one fiend monster from your graveyard, you can either, I don't know, I'm splashing examples here, special summon Beige and get a +1. Simple and easy. This is one of the best archetypal field spells I've ever seen, by having simple yet very powerful effects which help out the archetype. So yeah, this as a no-brainer should be ran at 3 at all times in any Dark World build. Next up we have a quick play spell, Gateway to Dark World. Target one Dark World monster in your graveyard, special summon that target. Oh yeah, so quick play Dark World monster reborn, and works with the conjunction of the archetype. Oh wait, there's actually an additional effect. You cannot summon other monsters the turn you activate this card, but you can set. Why? Why was this second effect a thing? Who thought this was a good idea? If it didn't have that second part of the effect, this would be the easy 3-off staple in the archetype, but as it is now, it's a questionable 1-off. What a disappointment. Their next spell card is Dark World Dealings. Each player draws one card and each player discards one card. Simple, easy archetypal upstart goblin, also triggering the effect of the many cards in the archetype, so simple and easy. Draw power cards are always nice, and this is a nice archetypal one, so it should be ran at max in every deck. Next up we have an interesting one, and that being Darkworld Grimoire, a continuous spell which has the effect during your end phase. If you discard a monster to the graveyard because you had more cards than your hand size limit, you can target one of those monsters and special summon that target. Okay, so this is an interesting one because Darkworlds rarely ever get into the hand size limit shenanigans, as they are forced to discard their own cards and everything like that. So again, it's a questionable choice to even consider running, but it does give a free monster, so if you feel like it, you should run at 1 max. And the last spell card is Darkworld Lightning. Target one set card on the field, destroy that target, then discard 1 card. I mean, it's a bit of a specific removal, but it can help out with discarding your own monsters to trigger their effects, so I guess not everything is bad. Again, it's a questionable one-off if I ever saw one. As for the spell and traps, there aren't many. There are only 5 of them, no, 4 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 of them, alright. The first one being the Forces of Darkness. Target 2 Darkworld monsters in your graveyard, add those targets to the hand. Simple archetypal Dark Factory of mass production. So yeah, I would have actually preferred if this was a spell card, but as it is now, it's perfectly fine at 1 or 2. The next card being Dark Deal. When your opponent activates a normal spell card, pay 1000 life points. The effect of that normal spell card becomes your opponent discards 1 random card. This is one of the 2 archetypal cards that actually triggers the opponent to discarding your own monsters in order to trigger those very specific discard effects, and among those, this is actually the worst one. Yeah, because it specifically needs to be a normal spell card, and you would need to pay 1000 life points, and it isn't a continuous trap card, unlike the next one we'll be talking about. Yeah, absolute questionable one-off if I ever saw one. Next one being one of the 2 continuous trap cards. First up being Dark Smog. Once per turn, you can target 1 monster in your opponent's graveyard, discard 1 fiend monster, and if you do, banish that target. Okay, triggering your own monster effects, which again is how you win with this Darkworld deck, and yeah, disrupting graveyard setup, but it's a bit too flimsy to consider running at max, or even to consider running at all. So yeah, and their last card is their recent support card from Code of the Duelist, that being Darkworld Brainwashing, their continuous trap card, which when an opponent's monster activates its effect, if you have 3 or more cards in your hand except during the damage step, you can target 1 Darkworld monster on the field, return it to the hand, and if you do, the activated effect becomes discard 1 random card from your opponent's hand. So this is an obvious 3-off staple because you can trigger the effects of various Darkworld cards which require them being discarded by a card effect, by an opponent card effect, that is. However, the bouncing is a bit obsolete here, so yeah, that's kind of a nitpicky choice, but yeah, I don't like that bouncing effect because the monster that's already on the field rarely ever doesn't need to be discarded to retain its effect. I mean, you can bounce back Beige in order to resummon him again, but what's the point then? I mean, that will be very, very pointless. That's right. And yeah, those were Darkworlds, and time for the grading scale. With the consistency, there's actually not that they're not that bad actually. They have access to there are some of the nice archetypal draw cards, Upstart Goblin, One Day of Peace, anything basically that can kickstart their play, but with also offering discarding to the mix is usually enough for me to bump this to a 3 out of 3. Power usually depends on Grapha, who is powered up by the field spell to turn it into a 3k beater, and Rainbow, which is not usually ran that much. they have the potential to be hit really hard, but they usually go into many various extra deck monsters in order to make any significant play, so 2 out of 3 in power. Comeback ability, see, this is a tricky one. The comeback ability usually depends on drawing into something that forces you to discard, so yeah, there aren't many cards that help out in that regard, so I'm gonna give him a 2 out of 3 there. As for the protection, there is none. Literally, there isn't any support cards that benefit from discarding that will grant you protection. Yeah, nothing at all. So 1 out of 3 there. As for the versatility, they can be splashable to an extent. I saw Ojama Dark Worlds once, which, you know, worked with the incongruent nature of Ojamas to discard Oja magic to perform searches and everything. So yeah, it doesn't have many applicabilities in terms of splashability, but it's certainly out there, so I'll give it a 2 out of 3 as well. So yeah, Dark Worlds are actually a very unique archetype for their time period, and I'd actually their only new support card came in the Code of the Duelist, which was very recently, and that pretty much says that this archetype can actually get some very nice support in the near future, and if it does, it's probably gonna be very nice, since, you know, brainwashing was really good. And as for this video, I'm done. Yeah, thank you all so much for watching. Stay tuned for more videos. There's an update, comment, like, and subscribe. And as usual, I'll upload the next vid whenever I can. See you all, have a good day, and peace.